Hey, I'm Gareth from Park Cameras, and today we're revisiting the Sony A9. Now, I've never actually got my hands on this camera. I shoot with the A7 III and the A7R III quite a lot, the two of my favorite cameras to shoot with. But when I got the chance to review the Zeiss Batis 40mm f2 lens, and you can watch our review by clicking the link somewhere up here, I thought it'd be a good idea to try it out on the Sony A9 because I've never got my hands on it, and because I love the A7 III and A7R III, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to try it out. Now, the first thing you notice with the A9 is, much like the A7 III and the A7R III, is just how small and lightweight it is. It's such an easy camera to just handheld shoot pretty much all day. I'm so used to shooting with things like the Canon 1DX or the Nikon D850 and like big DSLR cameras. So for me, the difference is immediate. It's very noticeable how much smaller and lighter these cameras are, and the A9 is no difference. It's a very nice, even though it's a pro mirrorless body and there's so much spec and features built in, it's so nice and small and lightweight. Now, as it's a mirrorless camera, you've got the electronic viewfinder on there. That means that you're seeing through the viewfinder exactly what you would see if you're looking at the screen on the back of the camera. And that's actually really handy because it means you can see an accurate representation of your exposure as opposed to just what your eye is seeing. And when you make changes to things like the shutter speed and the aperture and things like that, you will actually see those changes through the viewfinder. It also means you can review pictures and things like that through there, so you never have to take your eye away. Now, generally, I prefer using optical viewfinders, and that's probably just a thing where I've used them in the past and I'm used to them and therefore I prefer them. But actually, the electronic viewfinders are very handy. They're a very handy thing to do. It means you can shoot video through the viewfinder as well. It's just a very useful thing to have. Now, in terms of speed, this thing is awesome. It's got a 24.2 megapixel CMOS full frame sensor, and it can shoot up to 20 frames per second in continuous mode. It's also worth noting it's able to shoot in complete silence as well, which is great for wildlife photographers and wedding photographers and anyone looking to stay out of the action and be a little bit more discreet. Now, that 20 frames a second means that you're able to just nail the moment. You're able to get enough frames in there that you're able to get that moment, whether it be wildlife, sport, wedding, anything like that. You're able to get the emotion, the action, and just freeze it, and 20 frames a second is enough that you're almost guaranteed it. It's also great for low light performance as well. So I was able to push the ISO on this up to around 12,800 actually, without really giving myself any issues. And then going higher than that, I was still able to get some usable shots. And that's really useful because it means you can extend your shooting time. You can shoot longer after the sun's gone down, after you've lost your light, and it helps with workflow and things like that. And it just allows you a little bit more wiggle room for what you can do. Now, autofocus is another area where it really excels. It's got 693 autofocus points, that's edge to edge, so you've got a huge amount of room there to pick your autofocus point. And it's just really, really fast. It snaps on really quickly. The continuous autofocus is great when tracking people or moving objects of any kind. It works great in video, it works great in photography. And something else I love is the eye autofocus. So just by pressing the middle button on the back while shooting, I was able to just immediately lock onto the eye. It found it very fast. It was able to track it perfectly. I didn't have any issues with the eye autofocus, and it was awesome. It's actually incredible to watch it work. It's so clever. And it's so amazingly handy, especially when you're shooting with like a fast aperture lens, because it just means that you can make sure the eye is in focus every time. Such a useful thing, and Sony have really nailed it on this camera. Now, video-wise as well, this thing is awesome, and this was one of the big things that I was interested to see actually, because the A7 III and the A7R III are both awesome for video. I love shooting video on those, and I want to see how this would do. So it can actually do full frame 4K, that's downsampled from 6K, which is really, really impressive. That looks so good. And then it can also do full HD 1080p video at up to 120 frames a second, which, as I've mentioned dozens of times, is my favorite frame rate, looks great. Most of the video clips in this video were shot at that frame rate, so I can get some awesome slow motion, because as you know, I'm all about that awesome slow motion. And when you combine all that with the 5-axis inbuilt stabilization, this is an incredible system for shooting video. All of these shots were shot handheld. I didn't have a gimbal or a Steadicam or anything like that, and because it freed me up. I love shooting handheld, and the whole point of these shoots was it was one lens on the A9, and I was able to just run and gun everything. I could switch between photography and video like that. It was nothing. It was so freeing to be able to just shoot everything handheld, all the video. I was really, really impressed. The Sony A9 is still a fantastic camera. It's an absolute beast when it comes to photography, when it comes to video. It's a proper pro mirrorless camera, and it's really still showing what's possible with mirrorless cameras. Now, if you have any questions at all, pop them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, thanks for watching.